The empty seat at the table. The wind howled that evening, not violently, but with a strange whisper, like it was trying to say something no one could hear. The porch light outside the Gregory family's home flickered as if it, too, was restless. Inside, the warm glow of a well-lived house masked the empty ache that had lived there for over a decade. Harper Gregory adjusted the pearl necklace she wore, her mother's favorite. She wasn't used to dressing up, not for dinner at home, but tonight was special. Tonight, they were all gathering again, all 5 siblings for the first time in years. "Do we have enough chairs?" Harper asked, her voice careful, almost afraid to break the silence that had settled like dust over the dining room. 6, her younger brother Ben said from across the room. He paused, plate in hand. "Including hers." Harper turned away from the table, pretending to check the oven. "Yes," she said quietly. She always had a place. No one said anything after that. It had been 14 years since their mother, Lydia Gregory, left the house for a quick grocery run and never came back. No car accident, no confirmed crime, just gone. Back then, Harper had just turned 20. Ben was 15. The others, Mason, Kara, and little Zoe, ranged from teenagers to a baby just learning to walk. Their father, Thomas, had been a hard-working postal worker who tried his best to keep it together after the disappearance. But the grief, the unanswered questions, and the silence slowly pulled the family apart. Now, they were coming together again, because Harper had news. Big news. Present day. Family reunites after years apart. The front door creaked open, and Mason stepped in, wearing his military uniform. He looked heavier in the shoulders and heart, like someone who had seen too much, too soon. "Smells like rosemary chicken," he said with a half-smile, placing his duffel bag down. Harper smiled back. "You still know your spices." "I know the one she used," he said, and the room grew quiet again. Kara arrived next, her high heels clacking on the wooden floor. She was all business now, successful, sharp-tongued, emotionally guarded. But even she paused when she saw the dining table. 6 seats, perfectly arranged. One at the head, untouched, just like Mom always sat. Zoe was last. Now 15, she barely remembered her mother except in faint flashes, her voice singing lullabies, the feel of her hands brushing through her curls. She walked in hesitantly, looking at each face, then at the seat. "I brought one of her scarves," she said softly. "Is that okay?" Harper nodded, throat tight. "Perfect." Zoe placed the lavender scarf over the back of the empty chair. "Still no word from Dad?" Mason asked, scanning the room. "He said he'd try to come," Harper replied, though she knew it was unlikely. After all these years, Thomas Gregory had grown increasingly withdrawn, as if losing Lydia had made him lose everything, hope included. They sat, awkward at first. Dinner began with clinking forks and small talk about weather, jobs, and Netflix. But beneath every sentence was the same unspoken question that had haunted them for years. Why did she leave? And where did she go? The bombshell. A revelation at dinner. Harper waited until the plates were nearly empty, until the wine had taken off some of the edge, before she pulled out a manila folder and placed it on the table. "What's that?" Kara asked. "I need you all to listen," Harper said. "Please." Everyone turned to her. "I never stopped looking," she began. "For Mom. I know the police gave up, and I know we were told she probably just left us. But I never believed that. And last week, I got something." She opened the folder and slid out a faded photograph. It showed a woman, smiling, standing next to a man in front of a roadside diner. It was unmistakably Lydia Gregory, her hair a little shorter, face older, but those eyes, warm and knowing, were hers. Zoe gasped. "That's her." Mason leaned forward, frowning. "Where did you get this?" "A private investigator mailed it to me. I hired him 3 years ago. Told him to search every missing person registry, Every possible alias she might have used. 3 years of nothing. Then this photo. She laid out another sheet. A document. A rental agreement from 12 years ago, signed under the name Mary Callister, an alias. The address. A tiny cottage in the middle of nowhere. A rural area, 2 states over. Kara's voice cracked for the first time in years. You're saying she was alive. She lived somewhere. She might still be, Harper said. The man in the picture. His name's Peter Radlow. Former corrections officer. Retired early. No criminal record, but his background. It's strange. He changed identities too. Twice. Ben looked at her, confused. Wait, you think she was hiding? From someone? Harper took a breath. I think Mom was protecting us. From something bigger than we ever imagined. The table fell silent. Then Kara laughed bitterly, or she just wanted a new life. I thought that too, Harper said. Until yesterday. She slid one last item onto the table. A newspaper clipping from 3 days ago. Woman found in remote Kyoto. No Manori. No ID in Taitui. But heho LDs KEY. To UNS as OLED cold TAC. The grainy photo accompanying it was enough to make Zoe drop her glass, because even with the gray hair, sunken cheeks, and distant eyes, it was her. Mom, Mason whispered. The newspaper said the woman was found wandering near a property that had been recently sold. She had no ID, no belongings. She was disoriented and malnourished. But the most shocking detail. The authorities found a notebook buried in a tin box near the home. It contained names, addresses, and one chilling phrase repeated over and over. Protect them. They must never find out. Protect them. I've already arranged to go see her, Harper said. Tomorrow. The facility she's in. It's only 3 hours away. But what if it's not her? Kara said quietly. What if we get our hopes up for nothing? Harper turned to her sister, eyes fierce but tearful. Then we'll finally have a chance to ask, to know the truth. After 14 years, we deserve that. Mason stood slowly. I'm going with you. Me too, said Ben. Zoe didn't speak. She just grabbed the lavender scarf from the chair and held it close. I'll drive, Harper said. The family sat in stunned silence. The empty chair at the head of the table remained untouched. But now, it wasn't just a symbol of loss. It was a place being held for someone who just might be coming home. The woman in the window. The long drive to the unknown. The early morning fog clung to the highway like a curtain, blurring the road ahead. Inside the minivan Harper borrowed from a coworker, 5 people sat in silence, each wrestling with thoughts too heavy to speak aloud. Mason drove, hands firm on the wheel, jaw clenched. Beside him, Harper held the manila envelope filled with documents, photos, newspaper clippings, and the notebook transcript from the woman the staff called Marie. In the back, Zoe stared out the window, the lavender scarf still clutched in her lap. Ben had earbuds in but no music played. Kara typed furiously on her phone, perhaps distracting herself with emails, but her hands trembled. She may not remember us, Harper finally said, breaking the silence. The article said she has trauma-induced amnesia. We have to be prepared for that. No, Zoe whispered. I want her to remember me. She was found barefoot in the woods, Mason added, glancing at the rearview mirror. Car gone, house sold to a bank, neighbors long gone. It doesn't feel like coincidence. Harper nodded. She lived off the map for over a decade under a fake name. What was she running from? And why now, after all this time? Maybe someone finally caught up to her, Ben said. And she ran again. Only this time, she couldn't keep running. The facility. The Silver Pines Memory Care Center sat on a quiet hill surrounded by pine trees and silence. It didn't feel like a hospital. It felt like a place built to be forgotten. The receptionist greeted them with polite professionalism. "You're here to see Ms. Mary Callister?" she asked, glancing over Harper's documents. "Please follow me." They were led through a hallway painted in soft pastel colors, where soft instrumental music played overhead. The walls were lined with artwork, childish landscapes and flowers likely painted by the residents. "She's in room 214, the receptionist said, stopping at a closed door. "She doesn't speak much. Sometimes she'll hum a tune. Occasionally, she stares out the window and repeats a phrase." "What phrase?" Kara asked, voice guarded. The receptionist hesitated. "She says, 'Don't let the shadows follow.'" Everyone looked at one another uneasily. The door opened. The first glimpse of their mother. The woman sitting by the window was thinner than any of them remembered. Her gray-streaked hair was braided neatly down her back. A loose cardigan hung from her small frame. She stared out the window as if expecting someone, or something, to emerge from the trees. "Mom," Harper said softly, stepping inside. No response. Zoe followed, unable to stop herself. "Mom, it's me. It's Zoe." The woman didn't flinch, didn't speak, but she tilted her head slightly. "Marie," the staff nurse corrected gently, entering behind them. "That's the name she responds to." "Mary," Mason said slowly, walking to her side. "Do you remember us?" "Lydia." Marie slowly turned to look at him. Her eyes were cloudy, but something in them flickered at the sound of his voice. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Then, a whisper. "Mason," she said, the name barely formed. Mason's breath caught. "You remember me?" She blinked rapidly. Then her lips moved again, barely audible. "Don't let the shadows follow." The room went cold. The journal. That evening, back at their rented motel nearby, Harper opened the notebook again. The staff had given them a scanned copy of the entries, some pages warped by dirt and age. "They know. I saw the van again. I think Peter's gone. I have to stay off the roads. If they find this, I failed. The kids, tell them I never stopped loving them. I did this to keep them safe." "What van?" Ben asked, leaning over her shoulder. "It's dated 8 years ago," Harper replied. "Who was Peter?" "Peter Radlow. The man from the photo. She must have lived with him," Mason said. "Maybe he helped her disappear. Or maybe he trapped her," Kara muttered. But Harper wasn't so sure. She turned to the last few pages, written in shaky, almost panicked handwriting. "He said they would come back. That I'd have to run again. But I'm so tired. If someone finds this, I was never trying to leave them. I was trying to lose the people who wanted me gone. If you find me, it means I couldn't run fast enough." The stranger at the fence. The next morning, Zoe returned to the facility garden to sit with her mother. Lydia, still quiet, was brushing her hand across the petals of a flower. "I used to make you flower crowns," Zoe said gently. "Do you remember that?" Her mother didn't answer, but she looked at Zoe, just for a moment, as if the name Zoe stirred something deep inside. Then, something, or someone, moved beyond the garden fence. Zoe glanced up. A man in a dark coat stood just beyond the pine trees, staring directly at them. He didn't wave, didn't smile, just stared. Before Zoe could call out, he turned and disappeared into the woods. Later, when she told the staff, they checked the cameras but found no clear footage, just a shadow, and an open gate that should have been locked. Father's guilt. The siblings decided to call their father, Thomas Gregory, and told him what they found. When he arrived the next morning, he stood in Lydia's room silently for a long time. "She wouldn't have left," he said finally, "not unless someone made her." "You think she was taken?" Kara asked. Thomas shook his head. "No. I think she made a deal with someone, to protect us. There were things she never told me. Debts. People. She was running from something," Mason agreed. "But she was also trying to protect us." Thomas's eyes welled up. "And I let her do it alone." The clue in the photograph. Back at the motel, Harper examined the photograph of her mother and Peter again. This time, she noticed something. A pin on Peter's jacket. It bore the emblem of an old security firm, Red Leaf Protective Services. She Googled it. The company no longer existed, but records showed it had been bought out by a now-defunct private contractor, Black Horizon Solutions. She clicked further. One article stood out. Black Horizon linked to illegal surveillance, underground protection deals for high-value witnesses. Beneath the article, a partial list of protected names. Blacked out, but one stood partially visible. Callie. Mary Callister. Lydia. "Oh my God," Harper whispered. She was in witness protection. The woman behind the name. Back at the facility, Harper sat beside her mother again, now armed with the truth. "You weren't running away from us," she said softly. "You were protecting us. From them." Lydia slowly turned. "Red Leaf," she whispered. "They said, if I left the cottage, they couldn't protect me anymore." "Why did you leave?" Harper asked. Lydia looked at the window. "Because Peter died," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "And I saw them again. The men. Watching. Waiting." Harper took her mother's hand. "We're not going to let them hurt you. Not anymore." Lydia squeezed back, weak but real. "I waited for you," she said, the first clear sentence she'd spoken. "Every day. I knew one of you would come." The truth in the shadows. Nightfall. And a warning. The sky had turned steel gray by the time Harper returned to the motel. Her mother's fragile voice still echoed in her ears. "I waited for you. Every day." Harper had barely shut the door when Mason, who'd been pacing in the room, rushed to her. Zoe saw him again. Harper froze. "Who?" "The man in the coat," Mason said. "She swears he was standing at the tree line near the facility. Again. This time, he was taking pictures, but when the nurses looked, he was gone." Harper's stomach turned cold. "Do we have anything? Security footage? Witnesses?" Mason nodded. One of the gardeners snapped a photo on his phone. "It's grainy, but—" He handed Harper the phone. Her breath caught. The man in the photo was tall, middle-aged, with a sharp jaw and cold eyes. And more importantly, he looked familiar. She opened the envelope of old newspaper clippings and found what she was looking for. A 2009 article titled "Private Security Officer Accused of Threats in Loan Case." The face was a match. Ray Vassell, a former enforcer for the Doss family, one of the men suspected of tracking and threatening debtors who refused to pay. Lydia had mentioned the shadows. Now the shadows had returned. A mother's secrets. Back at the Silver Pines facility, Lydia, once known as Marie Callister, once known as Lydia Gregory, was more lucid than she'd been since her rediscovery. Her memory came in pieces, but those pieces now had shape. She stared at Harper as her daughter gently brushed her hair. "There were men," Lydia whispered. "I borrowed money after your father's stroke. I couldn't cover the hospital bills. Insurance was slow. I was desperate." Harper nodded, encouraging her. "From the Doss family. I didn't know who they were at first. They said I'd only need to repay in small amounts. But they lied." Her voice grew strained, eyes distant. "When your father got better, I tried to stop. I thought we were okay. But then they started threatening to take one of you." Harper's heart skipped a beat. "They said if I didn't keep paying, something bad would happen, that I had to deliver something valuable." Lydia leaned in, her voice barely a whisper. "They meant you, Harper. Peter Radlow and the escape plan." "Peter used to work for them," Lydia said. "He used to be their enforcer. But one day he came to our house, not for money, but to warn me. He said he was done with them. He said he could help me disappear." Mason, who had joined them by her bedside, leaned forward. "So Peter helped you fake your disappearance?" Lydia nodded. "He staged the car, sunk it in the quarry. He had a guy forge papers, set up a new ID for me. He taught me how to survive off-grid. But why not take us with you? Mason asked, barely holding back emotion. I wanted to, Lydia said, tears falling freely now. But Peter said, they'd chase us forever. They needed to believe I abandoned you. Only then would they stop looking. And for 14 years, Harper asked. I wrote to you, so many letters, but I never mailed them, Lydia whispered. Peter said it was too risky. Danger arrives. Later that evening, back at the motel, Kara was going through the pile of documents Harper had gathered. There's more here than we realized, she said, highlighting a receipt from 2009. Gasoline, tools, and 3 burner phones purchased by Peter under a fake name. This wasn't just hiding, she said. They were preparing for war. Suddenly, there was a knock at the motel door. 3 sharp taps. Everyone froze. Harper crossed to the peephole, cautiously looking out. No one was there. She opened the door slightly, and her eyes landed on a note taped to the outside. A plain sheet of paper with block letters cut from a magazine. Still up digging, or next time. She do UONTBFOUND. They called the police immediately. The final clue. Detective Marcus, a calm but no-nonsense officer with the local PD, arrived within 30 minutes. After hearing the story and reviewing the evidence, he agreed it wasn't just an idle threat. I've been trying to close the DOS file for years, Marcus admitted, but we could never pin them. Every witness went missing, recanted, or moved away. Now you bring me a living witness, Lydia. And someone clearly wants her quiet. The officer inspected the old lease agreement and noticed something. This warehouse she rented under the alias Mary Callister. It was in a DOS-owned complex. He pointed to a small scribbled note on the margin. RD greater than secure unit number 47. Until ship arrives. What ship? Harper asked. Detective Marcus looked grim. Let's find out. The raid. With police support and surveillance already watching the DOS remnants for years, the pieces moved fast. 2 hours later, the authorities raided an abandoned shipping facility tied to the DOS brothers. In a hidden basement unit, number 47, they found more than dusty crates. There were digital records, hidden hard drives, USB sticks, and burner phones. One folder, labeled DTQOLEC Assets, had names listed under potential leverage, and Harper Gregory was on that list. Another document, a shipping manifest, listed names next to destinations. One stood out, Elizabeth C., headed to Caracas, Venezuela. They had tried to move Lydia overseas. Peter's death had disrupted their plan. But now, the trail was wide open. Lydia's redemption. Back at the facility, Lydia sat by the window, watching the sunrise. She was calmer now, almost at peace. I thought they would bury me, she whispered to Harper, who sat beside her. You saved us, Harper said. You sacrificed everything. Lydia shook her head. I made mistakes. I should have told your father, should have asked for help, but I was scared. And strong, Mason added, entering the room. You were strong enough to survive it all. Now the police have everything, Harper said. Your story, the records. You're not hiding anymore. Zoe walked in last, holding a handmade crown of daisies. I made this for you, she said shyly, placing it on her mother's head. Lydia's eyes welled up. And then, clearer than ever, she whispered, I remember you, baby girl. Zoe broke into a smile and hugged her. A new chapter begins. 6 months later, the DOS organization had collapsed. Arrests were made. Property seized. Witnesses came forward, inspired by Lydia's courage. The Gregory family moved Lydia to a closer facility with specialized care. With therapy and medication, her memory continued to return, slowly but surely. Thomas began visiting her every week. He even brought a few of her old recipes and albums. The siblings, once fractured, now gathered for Sunday dinners again. A new ritual, born from pain, but grown from love. At the head of the table, an empty seat remained, not out of grief, but in hope. Because now they knew their mother didn't abandon them. She shielded them from a storm they didn't even know was coming. And now that storm was over,